something that we, are tracking when a large housing units are to be built. We kind of track that information. Sorry, I've been a little sick this week, so I feel like I'm underwater. So we're all learning and living together. But I provided this fact sheet for y'all, and it does kind of start at the basics. So if we could just start at the basics together, so we're all on the same page, I think that would be best. And as Daniel did mention, so on the table there is a place for you to write your name and your email. Emily, who is the St. Mary's Riverkeeper, is here, and she's going to be taking notes and also keeping track of those questions so that we can send them to Mr. Jacoby with the planning and zoning in Camden to get those questions answered if we can't answer them here. Does that sound good? Okay. So again, thank you so much for coming. We'll just start again from the beginning. So we're here to talk about zoning. Zoning is very important because it tells you what can be built where in your community. So that goes for what type of homes are built in a space, whether it's, large home, small home, townhome, extra home in the back, all that kind of stuff. It tells you how big your roads can be, tells you if a mixed-use building can come in, right? You guys get that stuff. And it very much impacts your daily life. So in Camden County, you can find the list of ordinances at this link. It's a very long document, so I didn't print it out. It's about like 100 pages. So I just provided the link for y'all so you can look at your leisure. But like most counties and cities, there are different zoning districts to shape what your community will look like. So that you don't have, some kind of like chicken farm right next to a school or something, Might kind of be stinky, might be bad. So folks can map out how they want their community to look. They also provide future zoning maps to say, maybe this is how our space looks right now, but in the future, we would allow for these different uses to come in. But again, this is all just to provide information to the residents to say, this is how we want our community to look, how we want it to feel. So in Camden, it's a very, rural area, and I'm sure as residents you enjoy living in that rural space. So that's what the zoning ordinances are there to kind of establish, is where there's going to be, a lot of traffic, or not a lot of traffic, a lot of development, not a lot of development, and that kind of thing, right? We're there. All right. So, so that's how you guide responsible growth and give residents the idea of what to expect in your communities. So the process for when someone comes into a space and they say, I want to build something here. They, will look around, see the land that's available, and when they look around at the land, they'll say, okay, what are my rights with this land that I want to buy? What could I build here right now as it is currently zoned? Because all of the zoning has more in-depth regulations that go as in-depth as, how far a setback would be, what a buffer would be. So it goes very into, specifics of what type of building, and some places even have different types of rules on what buildings can look like in certain districts, So that's what somebody who wanted to build would come in and do. They would say, okay, on this land, what can I build here? What kind of, infrastructure is already here for me to use, and where do I go from there? So after a landowner says, okay, I'm going to build, they have a couple different avenues they can go down to start that process. That's where we have the development process. So one of the things is they don't have to rezone because they pick a parcel of land and they say, okay, this parcel of land can build single unit houses. And that's what I want to build. Single family houses can be built here, so I'm going to build those here, right? So that's essentially where they just get a building permit. And they go by what is outlined in the ordinances. So that's what when folks say they can build by right, that's what they mean. They can build by right because their land is zoned for this. They say, yep, we're only going to build what the zoning outlines. We're not going to build at a higher density. We're not going to try to mess with the setbacks. We're going to just stick by the rules. That is a no rezone. Easy. But there's the rezone request, which is where a landowner might want to build something different than what is currently allowed. So they ask to rezone in a district that's already established in the zoning ordinances. Because like we said earlier, Camden has 19 different zoning districts. So, there's like R1, which is single family residential. There's R2, which is kind of a higher, medium density. So, maybe somebody would say, okay, I have an R1 land, but I want to build more homes on it, so I need to get it rezoned to R2, right? So that's how the rezoning process would work. And when someone wants to rezone, that's when they have to submit to the planning commission, planning department. It goes before the planning commission. They make their recommendation. That goes to the board of commissioners, who then decide yes or no to rezone something. So similarly, it basically is a type of rezoning request, but number 3 is planned development. That's a PD. And that's basically what Sheffield Island is. It is a PD. So when that is something that somebody wants to do, they basically make up their own rules for their land. They say, okay, I see all of these different districts I can choose from, but I have my own ideas of what I would like to do on my land. So a PD is a way for, quote, expressive and creative uses, and it can be a good thing. Folks can say, I want to have a PD so that I can, have storefronts on the bottom and the people live on top, or something like that, making a mixed use type of zoning. So, but when they make a PD, they have to submit all of the requirements. So talking about the density, again, talking about the setbacks, how they want their lots to look, how many lots are going to be on the parcel, where the roads are going to go. They outline all of that stuff, and they have to, again, present it to the planning commission. And then it goes to the board of commission, and again, they vote yes or no. So it's similar to a rezone, but the thing I want everyone to really keep in mind is there's not a set rule that they have to follow. They're basically making their own rules and then going before folks and saying, can we do this? And then they either say, yeah, you can do that, or yes, you can do that, except you have to do it this way. They can offer their own suggestions too, to say, we kind of like your plan, but maybe you should do X, Y, Z to make it better, and then they can work it out and approve it. Or they might say, no, we don't like your plan, you have to go back to the drawing board, sorry, and they have to resubmit again. So that's why a PD is different, and I just wanted y'all to be aware of that. And also on the back, there is, I printed out section 505 of the Camden County Codes, which talks about the planned development district specifically. Because something that I have seen and that Daniel has shared with me, the questions I think people are asking about Sheffield Island, are like, how can they build this when the code says this, etc. A lot of that doesn't really matter because it's a PD, a planned development. So again, that's where the Sheffield Island folks can say, we want it to look this certain way, here are our guidelines, will you approve it? So they don't really have to go by what the zoning districts in Camden County say, because they're making their own district, right? So I just wanted y'all to have that info, because the only thing they would have to go by is section 505, the planned development. So, all right, and then I also added on here just another different way that folks can seek to develop land is by annexation to a different jurisdiction, which is also what we have with Sheffield Island. So if someone wanted to annex to a different district, that means that they would not have to follow the code of ordinances for their current district, right? Like for their current county, they would have to follow the code of ordinances for the city that they're annexing into. Yes, sir?
On that line of thought, are they trying to annex all of Sheffield Island, or just those parcels?
Just those parcels. That's a good question. Yes. So in this example of Sheffield Island, they're only asking to annex their 3 parcels of land
Okay.
into Kingsland for municipal services, so they can build more houses and get connected to sewer there.
So on that note,
Yeah.
so having talked to Christy Bordelon, who's a friend, she's a lender.
Mm-hmm.
One of the most prevalent, she does a lot of loans for people here in town. So with FHA and VA, their guidelines are, so let's say that gets annexed in, and so they neighbor London Hill, who's already got an electrical, has some utilities. The way it's fuzzy, the way the guidelines are, saying if it's feasible, whatever that definition of feasible is, she sent me the language, that then this could trigger, let's just say, onto some of those others off of, these streets that are neighboring London Hill and this new project. What's to say that now all of a sudden it's feasible to start having other people have to get on utilities?
On their sewer. If it's when X number of feet.
Yeah, so that's what is another whole point. If somebody, let's say some of you decide to sell, and you happen to be a neighborhood just adjacent to that, you could be in a pickle.
Right.
Or the sewer runs
You know,
right in front of
because-
your house.
Right.
Because very likely you could have, that's what we sell a lot to VA, FHA in Indiana County.
I'm sorry, are you saying that it's gonna be harder to sell your house?
No, you might have to fit the guidelines.
You might have to tap into the sewer
So
if it's
you've got
feasible.
a red able buyer to sell your property, but you're on septic.
If it's on your house, you might have to.
So it might be for those of us that have a long, like on more acreage with a long driveway, tell me if I'm wrong, think of this, but that's what she has said. It may not be feasible, but let's just say that you're in one of the neighborhoods that you're on just a standard lot. We don't know yet. So that's a big question to find out, just to make a big point to this whole approval of the project, is that let's talk to some local lenders. I know Christy, I can get Christy to call.
Well, again, what's feasible?
But yeah, it's that definition. She sent me what the rules are for them as lenders.
Okay.
In order to close a loan, so here you think you're selling and you're moving to be near your family, and you have a big kickback. So.
Well, I think Megan had yeah, I was gonna respond to that question.
No, I think that's a really good point. The trigger for that, though, will be the size of the sewer line and the capacity of the pumping lift station. So what we're gonna have to really pay attention to and find out is what the sewer authority runs out there to provide service to the neighborhood.
Yeah.
If they have extra capacity, then they are gonna talk to neighbors, or it may even at some point require people to tie in.
I think we just need to look into that a little bit more.
If we find any of the annexations that go through, then we want to work on it.
That's
Right.
Yeah, we do.
Exactly, that's a good point.
That's my thought.
Yeah.
So, the question I have, is there a lift station out there?
No.
I didn't think so. Everybody wants septic.
They would have to build a lift station to run the
Just,
sewer.
I think that's why they're trying to do that off of London Hill, right?
One right there.
I have a related thought about that issue. It's much more immediate and affects everybody, whether you're adjacent to a sewer line or not. The fact of the matter is that realtors will stop showing homes that are on septic. Realtors will prefer to sell a home that's on a sewer line. Because then the buyer of the home never has anything to worry about. And it makes the job of the realtor much easier. And we've already run into that where I live. Okay, where realtors just flat stop showing. They don't go in, they don't take the listings because there's too much trouble. They're not competitive. Now that doesn't mean that people will be unhappy with your home. It just means that you've got other people making the decisions, what's easier for them. And they never intend to live in the home anyway. They're just a broker trying to sell your property. Now, there are many other things like that. For instance, some of our homes are 40 years old, or 20 years old. And so a newer home is easier to sell normally, especially to first-time buyers. And this particular subdivision is structured as starter homes, no matter what size they're offering. The smallest homes they're proposing are over 10 per acre. Single-family homes, 10 per acre.
Yes, and we're gonna get
The
into that.
largest homes they're proposing are 5.4 homes per acre. That's the largest home that they're proposing. That's in documents they have released.
Yes, in this packet, so, yeah.
It's in here, it's just a matter of doing the calculation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, and so they, of course, don't want you to know that they're thinking about 5.4 homes per acre. Most of us who think we have a small lot have a half-acre lot.
Yeah.
I've got 7.5 acres, of which 1 acre is upland. My house is pretty full on that 1 acre because of the living space that you have around your house. They're proposing a section that has over 10 single-family homes. They're calling them tiny homes. Okay.
That's a lot of sewer to pump.
That's all right.
Y'all, as
Which is
we,
a density that pushes the price of the home way down. And the only way they can do that is to have a sewer.
Just for perspective, 750 homes in Sheffield Island is the equivalent of about 4 to 6% of the population
Yep.
of Camden living on that corner of Sheffield.
you were telling me that yesterday, yep.
What percentage?
About 4 to 6 depending on
Y'all, these are
the county.
great questions. This is, yeah, these are great questions, this is exactly what it's for. I think that, yeah. I think that Kat's proposed speech will probably address most of them by the end. So please do ask your questions, but let's get through all the info first, and then we'll.
Yeah, we basically want to run through this
Yeah.
and then open the floor
'Cause it could
to
turn to a
have a
second.
big discussion. We also have Mr. Turner here, Mr. Casey is here, so thank you for coming. So they can also, talk with us and answer any questions we have.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so again, yeah, we all know what's going on. Just wanted to get through the basics so that we're all on the same page about the rezoning. So what is being asked is a rezone to a PD on those 3 parcels on Sheffield Island. That's what's being asked. That's the example that we're using. So on page 2, that's when we start going into the Sheffield Island example within the zoning and development process. I just wanted to quickly note that, okay, because I did have someone ask this question, that when would they be, or when are they supposed to notify you that something is being built? So it's only for something that's being rezoned. So that's something being, rezoned to a district that already exists or rezoned to a PD. So that's why you're able to have, a public hearing about this issue. If something can be built by right, there is no hearing. It's just, hey, let's build this, here's your permit, that kind of thing. And only residents who live adjacent to the property are notified of the rezone request by like a letter, in that formal way. And, they also post the signs up around the property when the hearing date will be. So just wanted, everyone to be aware of that. But back to the Sheffield Island example on page 2. So, as we said, the plans for Sheffield Island are a PD. So they are making their own guidelines. So that's what, if y'all were at that first meeting in Kingsland, Mr. Richard Stevenson had his PowerPoint, he went over all of his different ideas. They also have the website they created that kind of outlines what they want to do. That's what their PD is. That's their proposed project. We have had questions about what can be built there by right. So that is outlined, that's just doing the math based on the Camden County ordinances. But again, it kind of gets confusing that if it is annexed, then they would go by the Kingsland ordinances. But right now, we're still in Camden County, the property's still Camden, so we're going by Camden, okay? So, at full build out, because the 3 parcels are 343 acres of upland, and that's 229 acres of marshland. So just also know that, okay? They say that it's 572 acres total, but they can't build on that many acres. They can only build on 343 acres. So with that in mind, at full build out, based on the Camden codes, it says that you can have 1 acre lots with septic tanks, so that would be 343 homes. And then half acre lots using sewer, so that's 686 homes. So by right, they could build that many houses without having a hearing or anything. So that's just, yes sir, did you have a question?
That's just, straight math off of 343, taking into account roads and.
That's right.
Right,
Right.
exactly.
So those
Right.
numbers might be a little high.
Oh, true, yes, yes.
I'd say probably not 10% off of those numbers in reality,
Right.
maybe more.
And again, just to straighten.
That's a good
Yeah.
point.
To your point, they don't have sewer.
Right, and they don't have sewer. So, but that's just something that I've heard them say at the meetings, you know, that we can go out there and build half acre lots right now, which is like, well, you can if there was sewer, you know, but there's not, so you cannot. But thank you for bringing that point up. Yes, it would only be the acreage that, you know, you can build a house on. So the acreage is taken up by roads, it's taken up by the marshland buffer zone. So actually, yeah, that 343 number is kind of smaller. So now you're talking about 750 homes on even smaller acreages. Yes.
Cat,
Yes.
they are gonna put that big infinity. Yep.
Yeah.
Right, and they have all their stormwater ponds, so there's a lot, to your point, there's
Yes.
a lot.
Yes, so it's a lot less. So just think about that. When they're talking numbers, you know that it's not, you know, it's a little bit smaller than what they're saying. And these are also questions that you can ask them at the meeting, is what is the actual acres that are gonna be left for homes to be built on after the roads, after the center they build, after the ponds, after their marsh buffer, you know, what's the actual acreage? That's a question that they could answer, hopefully. So yes, right now, those 3 parcels are zoned R1 in Camden County. So that's based on the R1 zoning
So,
designation.
Kat, I'm
Yes.
sorry, so she's actually already done the math, she did the presentation that, with
Oh,
all the data numbers.
yes.
She came in a little late, so I just wanted to draw attention that she's,
Yes.
It's actually 133 acres, because they put 750 houses on it.
133?
Yeah, if you take the part at the bottom of their plan development and you multiply out the number of homes they have, it becomes 40 by 80, 60 by 80, all different lots. It's 133 acres, so they're actually selling lots. They're selling 133 acres of lots. So that's why they say lower density, because they have so much green space. But the only reason they have green space is it's market can't build.
Right, you're right on that front. Right. That's funny.
The lot size are typically 0.16, 0.22 acres are majority size, and they're actually, some of them are mostly smaller than the lots that you have in the meadows.
Wow.
So you're looking at like the meadows.
Okay.
That's 750 on
I'm
the.
talking about if you went from 1 acre lots and there's 133 actual building acres, you would have 133 houses, am I correct? If you were on the way some 1 acre lot.
The way it's going now, I mean, you know, generally, a certain percentage of your 343 acres is their upland has to be infrastructure, and usually about 30%, so you're looking at 60% of 343 is what you have houses on 1 acre lots. Okay, right. And streets and all that.
I was told about 150 without the city sewer.
That's probably about 143 acres, yeah. And that's more of what would be.
Alrighty, good questions.
All right, moving along a little bit, and then we're gonna, again, have all the time for discussion, and we're done So they're seeking to build, like we were saying, 750 lots. These are the amounts that they are asking for. I also wanted to note that 1 acre is 43,560 square feet. So when they're talking about having a lot that's only 4,000 square feet, you know, you can see that, see that math kind of clear there. And then this part I really wanted to get into with y'all about the extra steps and different permits that they might have to get if they wanted to build their Sheffield Island PD. So one of the things that they would have to go through is called a Development of Regional Impact Study. That's a DRI. For large-scale projects, they have to submit a DRI to continue. So that is through the Department of Community Affairs, and they conduct their own study to see, you know, how this large-scale project will impact the greater area. So once, what's actually before a project can be voted on by the Board of Commissioners, the DRI has to be completed. And you will have a public comment period to submit comments when that happens. But so far, they haven't needed to submit that yet. That's submitted by the local government. So because it was submitted through Kingsland and Kingsland put a pause on it, and they haven't submitted it to Camden yet, so there's not like a need for them to have the DRI completed yet. I just want y'all to know that is the next step that they're gonna need to do, okay? Impact studies, as y'all know, they've talked about the traffic study. They are redoing a traffic study, so more to come on that. The environmental impact study, they haven't mentioned doing any kind of study about that, and that's not mentioned on their website. So if that's something that y'all, would want them to do, you can ask them for it. You can ask your,
It's not a requirement.
it's not a requirement, so it's not a requirement, but it'd be nice.
Yeah, you can ask them.
Yeah, you can ask them, it's not a requirement. And then they did reference a 2007 archaeological study. So that's what they have brought to the table, is that 2007 study. Yes, and,
Excuse me,
yeah.
Mr. Moses spoke about
Yep,
that.
right.
So that's not accurate.
Mr. Moses, don't let me forget, I want to talk with you afterwards. I got a proposition.
They are still working on the archaeological, because they only did the study on one parcel and not on the two others that they are acquiring.
Actually, they only did the study on a portion of the property that he owns. There was one portion of the property that he owns that was omitted from the initial study, and then there's the two another parcels.
Right.
But they are working on that.
And there's
Yep, but I just thought that it was interesting that they, at that last meeting, they were trying to reference a study that was done in 2007.
Right.
And like we were saying, they haven't done it on the full parcel. Which brings me to the next part of the permitting process, is for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. So they have had the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers go out to only the two Chicanilla properties to see if there are any wetlands on those tracts of land. And what the Army Corps of Engineers would do is see if those wetlands are in their jurisdiction. So based on a ruling that was done by the first Trump administration, it's called Sackett versus the EPA, that made it a little bit easier for folks to fill in wetland areas and to define what is a jurisdictional wetland differently. So that's the rules that we're working with. So they did get, again, the 110 acres surveyed by the Corps, and they said that there are 3 wetlands which are not considered jurisdictional, but there are 3 wetlands that were considered jurisdictional. But they haven't really said, what their plans are with those wetlands, so they would need a permit through the Army Corps to do that.
They would need a permit through the Army Corps if they were going to impact those wetlands.
Yes, if they were going to
They could just leave
impact.
them alone, and they wouldn't need a permit through the Army Corps. But
Right.
If they were to turn them into a pond,
if they were gonna turn them into a
Right.
pond, if they were gonna fill them, if they were gonna even alter them in any way, they would need a permit.
Mhm.
are those findings from the Army Corps public, or?
Yes, they have them on their website. It's one of their, they have like all their different studies. It's called the
Delineation concurrence.
there it is.
Uh-huh.
What I'm sorry.
National Wetlands Inventory.
That's
There's a
definitely.
map, and you can see them, and they define them clearly.
Absolutely. And on the website that they uploaded it to, they call it the delineation concurrence, which is the formal process for getting to the exact resource he's talking
The
about.
bigger problem they have is they're eliminating wetlands there and creating ponds,
Okay.
which will overflow into the marsh.
Absolutely.
Everything is downstream, and everything on an island is downstream into the wetland called the marsh.
Mhm.
And so the Army Corps of Engineers, if they only look at the inland interior wetlands, is failing to do its job, which is to look at the impacts on the entire marsh, which is downstream, and it just so happens there are other polluters on there. And then think about 750 homes, 750 people, 600 people, 400 homes, spreading fertilizer
Right.
and insect killer into the Crooked River.
Right.
And so there are a lot of people that live on the Crooked River. And so if the Army Corps does not get involved, then we need to take this to a national level audience, because the Army Corps is failing to do its job.
Well, the Army Corps was only asked to look at those upland parcels. So that is also a question that I have for them, is when are they going to have it's 119004?
Yes.
That tract of land, who owns that one? So that hasn't been studied yet by the Army Corps. And that's something that they would need to have done.
And that's specifically 119004E.
Yep.
Those parcel maps are available from the zoning maps that should be available on the City of Camden website.
Yep. So yeah, they would need to have that parcel.
The parcel number was
Yeah, I actually have a typo. That's my,
One-
that's my bad, sorry.
119004 Echo.
Yes. So they would need to have that parcel surveyed as well.
Right. So that was really, I think that was really good. So we just brought up that the Buddy Carter specific parcel, 119004 Echo, has not been included in this wetland analysis per the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. I agree 100%. They're not considering the downstream effects. That's kind of the 2 points we just established. I'll get back on. And if y'all remember, okay.
This is the first one they put on the water.
Okay.
That parcel, 119004D is on there.
Yep.
That they look at it?
They didn't look at it, it's on that sign that way.
Yes, because that's one of the parcels that is making up the tract. Yes, yeah, that is Mr. Carter's property. So that's what I think is interesting, is they haven't gotten that property studied by the Army Corps, but that's the property that is, it's bordered by marsh. So they're going to need to get that property studied to see if there are any wetlands before they move forward. So just keep that in mind. And I did want to note, so if there is any kind of misuse of their stormwater ponds, or something goes wrong and it's flowing into the marsh, the EPD would be the folks to track that. So you could report any kind of misuse to them, and they would be the folks who would investigate and look into that. The last kind of permit that they might need, this is a smaller permit. It's a state level permit through the Coastal Resources. The Coastal Resources Division through DNR. They would need to permit if they are still planning to have a dock, but it also depends on what type of dock and where the dock is. So we're not sure, if they would actually need to go for that permit, but it's something that might come up down the road. Again, down the road would be another thing that they would need to get. Okay, so thank you for listening to all of the facts that I typed up for you. The next steps, really, so again, these 3 parcels, they are under contract. And they, it's in the planning phase right now. That's what, he told us. Mr. Stevenson said they're still in the planning phase. They have to go back to the drawing board, to just get their plans in order. And currently, there is no not chance, I won't say that, but there's no time for a public hearing on this because they haven't submitted it to Camden County yet. So there's not really a way for you to, voice your concerns in that formal manner, because there's not, time for that, because they haven't submitted it. And like we said earlier, the next meeting will be Thursday, the 11th of December, from 5:30 to 7 at the Camden County Recreation Center.
Yep.
So, kind of the same as the last meeting that was in October. They're going to have more updates for us. I'm not sure what they're going to talk about, but I'll be there. I hope to see y'all there, and you can bring your questions. And now I just want to, open up the floor for folks to ask any questions they have, so we can all get on the same page with what the next steps
And
are.
I just want to, full transparency and honesty, tell you that the developer reached out to us to talk to about this project, and we did talk to him, and we just told him that we can't recommend any suggestions for him, except that he has to go by the Camden County zoning ordinance. That's what his property is.
What is you down to?
He reached out to 100 miles.
100 miles.
Yes.
Yeah. We told him we weren't gonna talk to him about impervious surface recommendations or anything like that, because he needed to talk to the community. And, we just told him to look at the zoning ordinance.
And to me, that seems to suggest, possibly, again, I'm not playing insinuations here, that maybe they're trying to think of things that they weren't even thinking about for legality and requirements by reaching out to people who are more trained and expert in these things, and then figuring out, oh yeah, we should probably do that. So, it's possible.
Well, I do think it's a good thing that they are trying to.
It is.
talk to the community. Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think that, I think you guys should figure out what you want, for sure. And if it is that you don't want any development at all, I think you should fight it. But also knowing that they haven't purchased the property yet. So they could potentially walk away if you all don't want it, but also it is zoned what it is zoned. I know that I've seen on your Facebook page that there's some talk about maybe we could pull the money together to buy it, or maybe we could petition the county to rezone it, or, all these ideas. And I think you should talk about that, but nothing can happen until this contract is in place.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's two phases, get rid of the contract and then figure out how to preserve it, if that's the goal.
And maybe don't get rid of the contract, maybe try and influence the development first, and
Okay.
then there's all these phases, but, you gotta do first things first.
So I don't know if anyone else noticed it in the paper today, but marine land in Florida was bought by Group, and they preserved it. A big development wanted to come in.
Did not know
They
that.
had a lot of money behind it and so forth, but those things can happen, y'all. I got you. And SELC, when you talk to them too, I don't think we need to give up, for sure. But if they can do it, part of it,
But like she said, we have to get this contract stopped.
That's right.
And I think it starts with the annexation. If we can stop the annexation, then they can't build what they want, they're not gonna be able to get money, and then they're gonna.
Right, okay.
they'll come in and kill the area, and then they're gone.
And the way you can stop them from annexing the property is talking to your county commissioners and letting them know, what you would like to see, because the county has to agree to this annexation because it's not a contiguous parcel of land. So that's why we're kind of gridlocked, we're kind of stuck, Yes, ma'am.
I'm community area, we're only here 4 years, so I don't know all the people you have to get in touch with. We talked about county commissioners, I did go to a meeting, that was that.
They're here right now. Mr. Turner's right there, Mr. Casey's right there. So they came to the meeting, yeah.
We have those information.
Sure. Yeah, I'm sure they can help you talk to you. That's why they're here.
I'll try and
I
get
mean, we're
sidewalks.
large pieces of great area, chances of it never getting developed. It's gonna happen. The issue with the building density, the parents, they broke up their property, was 3.5 acre lots. You guys, acre and a half, two acres. Land with the marsh and everything, but the smallest one's over an acre. And that's what you would expect out there.
Real,
House 10 acres, not an acre, 10 houses.
Real quick, guys, just for the audio quality, since we're recording it, as people are asking questions, if we can just let them speak and then like kind of respond one at a time. That's just so we can listen to this later. Thank you. But yeah, it's a great point. Yeah.
Can I ask a question of our county commissioners here, since I just asked you a question? And you don't have to answer, just my curiosity, trying to understand. I know we were at the meeting, and I understand there's a process, and you can't deny anything until you're presented with something. But I know when they came forward with Kingsland, and county commission wrote letters to the city of Kingsland about the concerns that we had. Could you not make it clear to these developers that, this is gonna be a no-go? Don't stop wasting your time, our community's time, and your money, and our time?
I think we did that with the letter. Granted, you can do it formally, then we'll know more about
But
it.
they're still sniffing around.
Yeah.
So why can you not say, hey guys, thanks but no thanks, our community doesn't want you, please leave. We're
It's-
not gonna give approval for annexation, end of story.
Yeah, it'd be like your property. We
I don't
couldn't
even
go
know what
tell
that
you what to do on your property.
I understand, I just didn't want to know about what's right. In annexation, they're not gonna be able to get their density unless they get sewer run out there, which requires annexation, which requires y'all's permission for Kingsland to annex it. Why
Which
can
is-
you not say no to
Which
that
is
now?
what I wanted to see, the brick wall. They kept talking about a brick wall, it's gotta be a brick wall. And I thought that would be the brick wall, just us verbalizing that in your meeting, in our meeting, we basically stated it as well. Now, officially, you need to, the chairman needs to address that.
To keep the county from being sued by them, we need to go through the process.
That's all I understand, that's what I feel.
Now, there's some information that's wrong on your thing.
Oh, please tell me.
Yeah.
You got homes on, with septic tanks on 1 acre. That's if you have water, private water, and a private septic tank. If you got city water, which they'll have out there, that increases the density. That means they can do it on half acre,
Okay.
not on 1 acre. However, they have to have soil good enough for 2 septic systems in case one fails. And that is, governed more by the Department of Health than the county commission. That's their law.
Okay.
Like a community septic, not individual septic.
You gotta have room for at least 2 drain fields. In case the original drain field fails.
Room for 2 drain fields, but 1 septic tank? Like 1 septic tank feeding out? Okay.
So
Okay.
it's we did a little research on that, and it's my understanding that out there, they need it.
That's for the Department of Health to decide. They gotta go out there and do soil samples and whatever.
Okay.
Not first thing, I'm saying wrong, but there's nowhere on that.
So it would be between a half and
Different all over.
London Hill, y'all are on water, on septic, and y'all have 3 spots, right? And it changes if you have water and septic.
The Department of Health changed their rules years ago where you can't do
well in septic.
it on such a small lot. So,
I'm
with
a
R1,
city water.
the minimum
I have
lot
septic.
size,
If I would buy
if you
2
have
acres,
city water, is a half
If you
acre.
sell your home, if we sell our home, we're gonna have to get on.
This is
city.
not a hypothetical
I
problem.
also have my
The
well.
St. Mary's
I still have my well
River
up
Keeper
too. Best place to do it.
facilitated and helped raise fund grants in order to replace dozens of septic tanks and fields along the St. Mary's River, which were contaminating the St. Mary's River and everything downstream. And that was just recently completed. It's a real problem in Camden County where we don't have, where our land is so flat.
Well,
And
you also
the
got,
water table is so close to the surface.
also got to look at when those septic tanks were put in. Some of them were just 55-gallon drums.
Wow.
So, that
so they did replace regular septic tanks, and so let's not confuse the issue by saying that there was an example of 55-gallon drums for septic systems in older, uncoded development. We know for a fact that it's a problem in Camden County. I have dealt in my subdivision with that problem, and I've seen along Harriets Bluff Road other subdivisions dealing with that problem. And so the fact is, it does exist. It cannot be reduced down to not a problem.
What's your point, Mr. Winter? I wasn't saying it's not a problem. Now, what you're advocating for there is what Mr. Goodman advocated for a while back, was to eliminate septic tanks countywide, and that would be an astronomical cost.
No, that has nothing to do with it. If a septic tank system is properly installed according to normal code. But when they're talking about 10 houses per acre, which is in this document that they have presented to the public, over 10 houses per acre, then there's no room for 2 septic fields per home.
That was with city sewer. That was with them annexing and having city sewer. And city water.
Two things you didn't deal with at all here is and it's just, it's practical, you know. You got down all these other trees, you gotta create more, wetlands. If you've got those trees down, and the other thing is, what the sheriff has been dealing with the whole time, as far as the traffic on Harriets Bluff Road. That is the other issue. Those are two common sense issues.
Right.
That you don't have to have a PD on, you know. Those two issues need to be brought out in your meetings with these folks. Apparently, they're out there surveying the property, looking at the bridge or protocol. Thank you so much. But, they're trying to figure out how to solve that issue as well. But they're not doing anything with the traffic. They're not doing anything with cutting down the trees.
Traffic man, he is a service that it would be acceptable on the letter.
Hang on, guys. Hang on, guys. Keep your boys down.
Call the sheriff and get him involved. I mean, he's already made the statement. I'll give you his phone number.
Mr. Rayner, you got a question?
I live in London Hill. Prior to moving there, I don't know how many years ago it was, but my neighbor's house burned down, and the fire response, they could not get out there in time to even get close to saving that house.
Wow.
So contact the sheriff, talk to the fire chief.
Yes, sir.
Back on the point where the guy that did the survey, the traffic survey, he said that road would never be 4-lane, period.
Harriets Bluff Road?
No, Sheffield Island Road, out to London Hill, that road would never be 4-lane. It's not big enough. I mean, if when one person gets in an accident on that road, it's gonna be written off forever. That road can go around someone without seeing.
Mr. Turner. Hang on, guys.
It's just it's another common sense problem. That bridge right outside of y'all's neighborhood, we've been working with the DNR since I came in office 3 years ago to try to get that water to run off even into the creek. Even though when it gets full, it's full, but in low tide, you have some runoff from DNR, has to give special permits. So that's another issue. If you get 750 more people stuck in there, they're not gonna go across that bridge in
kind of
certain.
diffuse that.
Bring that up as well.
It is 7 o'clock.
Especially after the last high tide, the last king tide right through, that bridge definitely got flooded. So that got brought up at that community meeting of like, it's not just the box culvert, it's that bridge on Harriet
heard the same things in here.
Well, and then they inspect the bridges, and that takes hours to reopen the road, inspection.
All right, guys. Oh, Mr. Moses.
Kat, I think you did a deep dive into these.
Yes, I did.
Did you, come across, I started re-sifting through them on, did you come across any requirements when they're doing a plan development like this? Once you get a certain number of homes, they have to provide fire hydrants?
I'm not sure that that's in the,
Because that's gonna affect the water line size that has to be run all the way out there, and that's a big game changer for how much water they gotta have.
I think that's, I don't think that's something in that code.
no, that's not in the code.
There's something in there
There's
about.
something in the Camden County Code for fire, who I mean.
I have a question, those of us that actually live on Sheffield Island Road, is there a fire hydrant?
Hang on, guys.
There's one on Windsor Circle. Yeah. That's the only one I can think of. Is there another one anywhere else?
There's two in London.
There's, London Mill has two. I know there's one on Windsor Circle.
But do they work?
Hang on, guys. Let's respect the whoever's speaking.
The night the house burned down, they ran around trying to hook up the water that night.
Yeah.
They burned, the house.
Because I know it was several years ago, that I was walking my dog on Sheffield Island Road, and this one truck kept.
Hang on, guys. Let's respect everyone that's speaking.
We all came out here tonight to kind of figure out, talk and learn more and stuff. But we're now at the point like where we're all kind of asking these questions and, I don't wanna say complaining, but like what the heck do we do, right? So what I'd like to ask is, what do you want? Like, is it possible, I don't think it's possible to say, maybe it's possible to say, go away, right? That's what we want.
Apparently, we can't do that yet. The annexation needs to be stopped. I think if the annexation stops, these developers will walk away.
Okay, so that's what I want, it's like, let's set some goals.
And part of the reason for that is not just for Harriets Bluff, but remember when we pointed out, those of us that were at the city meeting for Kingsland, and I brought it up because we had city planning come to speak to us at Watson. And I said, here I'm looking at what was presented, and there were 11,000 units, homes, apartments, units that have already been approved by the city of Kingsland at some level of approval. And there are already problems with their lift stations, there's already problems going on. How can, and so that's when they just, after we all spoke, that's when they tabled everything. Because I don't know that anybody stopped to look at what have we already approved?
Right.
And what are we taking on? And people are saying, you're adding all of this, are we gonna continue to grow? You've got emergency service, you've got buses, you've got schools to build. What are we, it's one thing to have an attitude of growth, but how in the world are you going to have money to support all of these people coming? It's just time to take a breath.
Yes, ma'am.
About, what Mr. Casey said about the reason that they can't say no to the annexation. The city can't say no to annexation yet because you might get sued by the developer. Like,
Well, if
you
you,
need an attorney or somebody to get that done.
we have an attorney.
But
Well, an example is, we used, something that happened in Fernandina. the city of Fernandina skipped a step in their process in allowing a developer to build on a piece of, I can't remember the name of the property. Yeah, it's hard to see. But anyway, they skipped a step. Well, they approved it. Somebody sued them because they approved it by skipping that step. We do not need to skip any steps in our process. The developers or property owners have not come to us and asked for any rezoning, any plan development, any annexation.
Is that by design?
You gotta ask them.
Yeah.
They have not approached us.
He's right, they have to do everything by law.
And when you said the community asked the county commissioners to rezone properties, we can't do that.
Well,
We
you
can't,
can't, you can't.
no, we cannot rezone somebody's property without them asking.
No, you can't, you pass zoning ordinances all the time that rezone properties. That's what a zoning ordinance is rezone property.
But it has to be requested.
Well,
So the state law requires counties and cities to pass zoning ordinances. The first zoning ordinance, rezone property. If you pass a zoning ordinance and you change, R1 to R2, that's a rezoning. You can do that. You have to notify the property owner, but you can do it.
What about the annexation?
You can, I promise you.
I think if you did that without that property owner's okay consent, you will be sued by that property owner because in a way, you would be taking from that property owner.
Supreme Court case law, I promise you. I can promise you.
So, follow-up question with that. There are successful examples in case law with that. What does an unsuccessful case look like?
So the Supreme Court has said that the only way it is a takings is if you remove 100% of the property value from the property. And it goes way back to the 1980s in that case law. And there have been lots of lawsuits about it. I'm not saying it won't get sued. I'm just saying that, and it might go the whole way to the Supreme Court. You will have legal battle. I'm not saying that that wouldn't happen, but if you take it the whole way up, there's a case law that supports that properties can be rezoned.
Interesting. But last ditch, maybe.
But that's just for roads and such.
No, it's for everything.
But I don't think the county has any interest in rezoning anyone's anything.
That's true.
Right.
It's a hard, it is a hard road to hoe.
Right. I think it's wise to know all options.
So, if you do that with Buddy Carter, what's to stop us from doing it to anybody else?
Yes, ma'am.
I just have a question. Are you talking about what next steps? I know everyone's angry and they're pissed off because we don't want to lose the value of our homes, let alone our lifestyle change. What about going around and getting petitions? I mean, I'll be more than willing to do it. I don't know what is involved with it. I've done petitions before and I'm into more. But I'm sure there's enough people that would do it. Just, will that help us?
What would the petition say?
What would it, yes, ma'am.
Well, we want to stop privatization. We want to start there.
Well, and I think it sounds like the ball is completely the developer's court. Until they have something together to present to the county, for the county to deny. Correct. Personally, and Monica brought this up last time, we think the next meeting with the developer, we walk in, first thing we ask after they do their fancy introductions and show us their new pretty plans is, number one, are you still requesting annexation? And if they say yes, we all get up and leave. Because that sends a message to them that, okay, we know where you're at. We'll just tell them, go ahead, submit your plan to the county, we'll take it up with them.
But I think you have to make them feel uncomfortable at the same time.
If they spend money for all their experts to come out and talk down to us again, and then we all walk out after they spent that money, then we feel a little bit uncomfortable.
And we also don't want to use the petition prematurely, that we should just wait and do the process, and do it, put it to the most effect.
Yes, ma'am. All right. So I think we all agree that there are two steps to this. Number one, just complete flat out oppose the annexation. Number two, sounds a little confusing. I don't know which way we're going to start to go. So 4 out of 3 specific parcels, Ms. Cat, which ones are those? 2 Chippewa and 1 Carter? So
Yep.
19004 Echo and then the other 2? Okay.
Yes.
All right, just clearing that up for me. So phase one of 2 phases sounds pretty set in stone. I think petition is not a bad idea, especially if you have, access to the board rooms, you've got and then phase 2, I think, by the time we leave today, I would love to hear what the community phase 2 is of what do we want to resolve. Obviously,
I don't think rezoning is the way to go.
I don't think so either.
That is a, like I said, it's a hard road, and I don't think there's a political will to do it.
What about a very strongly worded petition to get Mr. Carter on board of rezoning?
That's about
Okay. But most people feel that way, there's no chance in hell. Okay. I should say no on church.
You would have a better chance of finding a buyer.
He would have a better
No,
chance.
you would have a better chance of
Okay.
finding a buyer.
Who?
Maybe we can get the developer to leave, so then he has to raise us. Then we can do the rest of it. Yeah, if he goes back on the market, we're still looking for a buyer.
What were you saying?
He's running for reelection. Why don't we get a commercial somehow and show what he's trying to do to this nice rural county people, simple people?
So for me, so it,
We can do it the complete opposite way. We can go ahead and say, listen, we'll be your biggest advocates if you just turn this into a park. And you're the greatest guy on the
is he running for reelection in this district? I thought he was running for state.
Yeah, I mean, so you're in front of the whole state, it's not making it look like these people want to bring the legal voting act, because they care about his own little county. That doesn't play well with my records.
From my understanding, our national senator is not pulling excellent. So if running senator drops out of the race, do we know if he's seeking reelection?
No, he will run to be elected for, his current seat, he's running for Senate.
Okay.
He's out as our representative. So, Veterans Day, I was in Brunswick, for the veteran ceremony. Yeah. And I sat right next to the guy that had Buddy Carter on his shirt, and the House of Representatives on his sleeve.
Okay.
And, I asked him if Buddy Carter was there today, and, he said, no, he's in Atlanta today. I said, well, he probably needs to be getting back to Washington for this, reopening of government, but, after the ceremony, I vented on this poor guy. And, I told him, I just wanted to let you know that I am so happy that Buddy Carter is running for our Senate in Georgia. And he said, oh, okay, yeah. I said, that means he will not be my representative.
Now, why is that?
His face was,
Yes. Now, why is that?
no, he's
Have seen him run for office.
Even if he was here. Oh, okay.
So anyway, I left this guy with, I said, you get this down, you take this back to Buddy Carter, that, he's going to 0 votes for Senate in county county. You let him know that. And I said, that I will work every day and night and stand at every intersection on 95 at the same time to stop it.
That's one part.
Okay?
That's one. Did anyone have a question about this? Is there?
Buddy Carter's going to be good, so. Everybody needs to get sidetracked. Buddy's just trying to sell a piece of property, he bought a turn fast stuff, he needs to get his money back. Yeah. Space for his work. But it's not his subdivision, he's not trying to finish it, he put it up for sale. His real estate agent came back with an offer from the developer, and the developer wants to do it. The developer is the one that's doing the agency. That's the problem, more than an opportunity or a problem, everything. But I think it muddies the water and it makes people look foolish. And you don't want to be in a group, you
in Harriets Bluff because they don't want to be in town, in
They
a
don't want to live in a
subdivision.
neighborhood like that.
They want to be, you know, they want to enjoy the magnificent trees, the oak trees, the wildlife.
But that's what they'll say, they'll come back with, we planned this so that we can keep the trees, and what you want, we're gonna have to mow all the trees down.
Well, Saunders done it.
That's the real problem, that's the real problem.
But if it's a 3-acre lot, you know, you've got plenty, you can, you know, so when I'm showing a property with people that want some land, you know what they do? They put on their boots and they walk the land. And they count the trees and they identify what are the trees. Oh my God, this one.
I agree.
This
I agree.
So,
There were about 50.
but that's, it's a huge difference between a 40, 60, and 80 foot.
But Mark,
You
it
know?
is my understanding that because they are paying so much for the property, they are putting X number in there to make a profit. That's what they're looking at. There's no way for them to pay that kind of money and come out. That's where the whole problem comes.
Well, he needs to consider his price. He's trying to double what he paid.
And
So, you know, it's go, give it, you know, we're not in a seller's market by any means right now.
Just look how many developers that come in and done this and walk
Wake
away.
up and just do the right thing for, you love the state of Georgia, do the right thing. You know, sometimes it's not about a profit, it's about the love of country, the love of your community, you know, where's the love?
Different developers have different business models, right?
Yeah.
So, the type of developer you want is not obviously.
That's
this
right,
type of
it's, you
developer.
go get somebody else,
Yeah.
and they're out there.
So, I have a question. Who would be happy or satisfied if a respectable, larger acre lot development came in? You can raise your hand. I'm going to do that. So, hey, you can- So, no, let me give you both.
Better if we had one of our local builders do it.
Okay, so let me reframe it here, let me give you both options. Number one, who would be all right with seeing it develop? The second option is, who does not want a single bit development of any kind? So option one, who would be okay if any kind of developer came? But, well, sorry, any kind of developer that respected larger acre size and met all the requirements we wrote. Okay. All right, now on the flip side, who does not want to see a single tree or bit of land touched? Okay. There's no
Wants to know, I didn't want any of you to have to kill them. Because you're raising your hand over that table, that's the fire going to get as black. You might want to run some, it's turned into a zippy store.
All right, who feels that they have learned something new about some of the nomenclature and some of the law and words and stuff from tonight? Before I go to the productive meeting. Tonight, I want to leave with at least a list of the options for what we want after the annexation is good. That is so critical to that everyone wants that. But that second one, I think we're a little lost on that. So if y'all want to just rattle out suggestions of what you would want to see after the annexation is good.
Responsible development, if any.
Okay?
Responsible use of
I'm
land.
fine with it not being touched at all, personally, but I'm a realist and understand that we have a nice area, and somebody wants to come and get 5 acres and build their nice little house and enjoy the area with me, and commune, then I will go.
So I'm gonna put responsible development, ideal 3 to 5 acres. Okay? Option 2.
The services, or is the county gonna be responsible for the services? So the city will be responsible for the services? But if Kingswood annexes this small area, then things are touchy. And everything it touches can be annexed.
Right.
Harriets Bluff, it's all we would like for you to take use.
Okay?
So, that's a big, annexation has got to be off the table. If we agree on that, we can find out what it would be. Annexation, it has to be absolute, you know,
first kind of step two, but second phase. Responsible development, ideal to, I'm gonna say 2 to 5 acre size. Option 2, bought by a conservation group. Require the current property owners. That's not, which one? Is there any other options?
I want the Australian guy, the project lead.
Yes, Richard Richardson.
I walked him around out there, showing some historical concerns I had. They brought their archaeologists, and that guy had only been out there. He'd only been to easy to get to Bluff. Their first going into the city, they had a giant oak that was on the Mayflower. That's a possible deal on that. The second one they had is they needed a school. They had a big dock. Well, the dock, the size of the dock, was all the way over to Napa Waters and onto the sandbar across the river. They don't know. They don't know. And that's why they're having these little meetings, is to let's stir up some questions, stir up some fires so we can put them out and get some help. If they're focused on that tree, I look at those engineers, they've never done a project this big, they've never done one this complex, and they're trying to feel their way through it so they don't put it down to the boss. The boss seems to be giving them a little bit of budget. I think they're trying to build a case of getting more budget out of their boss, spend more money, and learn something in the process. When I walked him around, he was like, there's all these trees, they're beautiful, all these trees. Yeah, but your layout slicks all this, buddy. Yeah. Where you're walking right now, that's all there is slick. That's their road. You know, and there wouldn't be this many issues if there was someone more experienced with that. So that's kind of to the local they're doing all this off Google Earth, GPS maps. It's a half dozen desk jockeys in an office in Atlanta floating on this. So these guys scare them because they go radically and directly. You can't really run somebody's property.
No, you can't. You could, but you won't.
You could try.
You could. Like it is.
Come with a wheelbarrow load of money and fail.
I mean, and let's be honest. You can't do it, but you would get sued.
Right.
Yeah. You would take it all the way to this case.
Did you see their plan meeting? All the green was our property, not theirs, not what they're planning to do. And one section of green was one of my neighbors. He's got a little piece he got from Sheffield Island, got some green on it. And they have 2,000 feet of my dirt road paved for access to their stuff, you know. Right away gives you the right to cross over to get your place. It doesn't give you the right to pave it and do all that. So there's so much that I'm really scared.
Why is this guy driving these big trucks from our neighborhood? Well, guess what? He has an easement to your subdivision to get to his property. So they have a lot of things that have to overcome. And I don't know what the Sheffield Island has as far as their covenants and restrictions, but I think they have covenants and restriction rights on their parcels that may possibly potentially carry over with the sale, the run of the property that they're gonna have to overcome, or the Sheffield Island have to sign off and give up. So there's a lot of property right issues that they're gonna have to
But I'll
Thank you.
Great.
so